Prologue, Before It All, Chapter 1. If you also enjoy all things My Hero, you'll really like this one. It's a story that takes place before characters like Izuku are even born. And no, it's not some wannabe Deku MC clone knockoff story. It's much more than that. I went about it differently than most. I've read a lot of MHA stories on Wattpad, and I assure you, this one is different. It takes place before Nagant's arrest and before the Vigilante series, and in a sense, kind of is a standalone story from the OG MHA. The story follows Kaina Tsutsumi, better known as Lady Nagant, in her early 20s, and a little boy whose life had a rocky start due to a terrible incident caused by a quirk manifesting without proper training. This story primarily follows Nagant at the start, how one small incident, one small change in someone's past, can change their entire future. As we know her, she killed the Safety Commission president. But in this story, because of what started out as something small, like rescuing a little toddler, well, you'll just have to read and find out. Enjoy. Kiona's narration. The first recorded manifestation of a quirk was a newborn baby in the city of Qingqing, who had the ability to emanate light. After that incident, many people around the world began to manifest different kinds of special abilities. While the cause of the quirk phenomenon is unknown, it has been theorized that the spread of a virus carried by mice had brought about their development. Currently, around 80% of the world population possesses a quirk. The dawn of this extraordinary era was marred by a breakdown of society caused by the sudden onslaught of criminals empowered by their newfound superpowers. Quirks are said to be the next stage of evolution in the human race. It is possible, though rudimentary, to diagnose a person as possessing or lacking a quirk by analyzing the presence or absence of an extra joint in their pinky toe. People with only one joint tend to develop a quirk, while having two joints usually indicates that the person is quirkless. The lack of the extra joint makes a person's body more streamlined, a secondary aspect of human evolution brought about by the emergence of quirks. A person's quirk will normally manifest any time before the age of 4, sometimes even straight after birth. Such was the case with present MIC and the luminescent baby, although there are late bloomers who don't develop their power until a bit later in life. There are also records of people not developing their powers until they hit puberty, and Izuku Midoriya was able to hide the truth of receiving one for all by claiming that he was a late bloomer, showing that it is possible for someone not to develop their quirk until their teenage years or perhaps even later. In one very early case in the history of quirks, Yoichi's quirk bestowal did not make itself known for most of his life due to his malnourished body causing it to be weak and unformed, leading to the belief that he was quirkless. A quirk's manifestation tends to happen very suddenly, often to the child's surprise. Hiro Kirishima's hardening quirk first manifested in the middle of the night when he needed the toilet and resulted in one of his hands accidentally cutting his right upper eye. That said, there can be precursors to a quirk manifesting as well, such as Tenko Shimoa feeling a sudden pain in one of his arms the evening before his quirk fully manifested. Furthermore, not all quirks are singular abilities, as there are some that can have multiple powers. My quirk allows me to protrude a rifle from my right elbow, but I can also mold pieces of my hair like epoxy putty and shape them into any kind of bullet. Tsuyu Asui's frog quirk gives her the physiology of said creature, granting her the many abilities of a frog such as an extendable tongue, great leg strength and leaping ability, camouflage, etc. But enough about how quirks work. We all know that quirks, in the right hands, are a fantastic tool that can be used to better the lives of the many. They can inspire hope, they can reduce the stress of day-to-day life, and even some can solve the increasing issues and shortcomings in our society. But the same can be said, that quirks, in the wrong hands, or in many cases, the untrained hands, can and will cause chaos, overwhelming bloodshed, and heartbreak. People try to manipulate their powers for themselves, to hurt others, only to better themselves, and then there's the children, who manifest new quirks, that they themselves just aren't prepared to use, or have no idea how to use, and thus, when they manifest, they hurt themselves, others, or the things around them without meaning to. Like with Kenko Shimura or Kirishima, who hurt either themselves or others by accident during their quirk's manifestation. Kaido Gurk was no different, born of a family with two unique quirks, a father with a strength-enhancing quirk and a mother of a light manipulation quirk. Kaido was expected to inherit one of the two quirks, but this was not the case. A power manifested silently one night, it's unknown what night, but this power silently manifested, and began to fester, growing with time, to an uncontrollable level without having its release found, at the age of only 3. His quirk, later learned to be a stockpile type of quirk, overflowed, having had no outlets, unleashed, and in one moment. The boy's family was gone, the house, the cat. Everything. Wiped out in an instant. A story, strikingly similar to the one we had seen in Tenko, was repeating itself, in fact, doing so years before Tenko's story of similar magnitude was to play out. In case you hadn't guessed, this world treated him the same as Tenko had been. No one reached out their hand, no one helped the wandering, crying child roaming the streets, while clenching a dirty teddy bear. This scared and confused child, building up resentment for the world around him, that continued to say a hero would come. Blaming himself for the things that transpired that night. Horrified that his power, he didn't know how to control, would strike again, that he was the problem, that this distinct lack in helping hands was the world's way of punishing him for what had happened that night. He was destined to travel the same path as Tenko, destined to end up eventually becoming a pawn to the demon lord, all for one. Destined to wander onwards until his resentment for the world overflowed. A life of villainy and evil awaited. But unlike Tenko, a hero did eventually come. The hero, who would come to this broken young man's rescue, would be a hero, equally as broken and questioning of their world around them. Like him, had seen the rottenness around us, but from a completely different angle, a hero, on the verge of losing footing, and turning against this rotten hero society. Me. Arc. The years before middle school. Kaina Lady Nagant POV. I crouched down in front the little man, extending a hand out to him, sporting an open inviting smile as I spoke. Hey little guy, what are you doing out here all by yourself? Did you get separated from your parents? Continuing to sniffle and cry into his knees, finally lifting his head out of his legs as he peered over his knees. Looking onto me with eyes that look rather dry, like they've cried all they can cry, but they still want and long to cry on. I didn't mean to. I swear. I swear I didn't. He sniffled out, pleading that his words are truth, snot dribbling from his nose, tears streaming out his eyes. A slight raise of an eyebrow, ever so slight, tells my emotion as I reached out for him. Hey, it's okay little guy, I'm here to help. Just tell me what happened. I gently run a hand through his hair, trying to comfort him. He looked at me, through his snot and tears, with a look of terror in his eyes. But not for me, or towards me. But instead, aimed towards himself. For the things he had done. I was just trying to sneak a pack of gummies into my room. Asterisk cries harder, sniffling more intensely, and closing eyes tight asterisk and mommy caught me. And I was startled asterisk sniffle asterisk, and the next thing I knew, light came from my body. And when I woke up, everything was destroyed. Everything hurt, and mommy and daddy where he cuts himself off, crying more profusely. Spilling more tears. An ugly cry this time. I didn't truly know the extent of his situation. But I have enough information now to assume that what happened was his quirk manifested. He couldn't control it, and something terrible happened. And now he's blaming himself for whatever happened. To what extent of terrible? I don't yet know. 1 or 2 drops of water come down from the sky, down into the alleyway, staining concrete with the signs of beginning to a rain shower. I momentarily look up at the sky, seeing the storm clouds, predicted on the Weather Channel this morning, settling in. Rain begins to come from the sky, falling around us inside the alleyway. I get on both my knees now, reaching out and grabbing him gently and calmly, bringing the little guy up into my arms as I spoke, rain starting to fall around us at an increased rate. It's okay sweetie. Here, let me get you out of the rain. I truly didn't know what kind of rabbit hole I just got into. Later. Staring in through the glass, watching as the little guy slept restlessly atop a hospital bed. While police, and the hero X-less, who was tasked to investigate a situation related to this boy. Talk with me. So, he's the only known survivor of the explosion? I asked, making sure I was getting the picture. That's correct, according to eyewitness reports from an old lady walking past the home during the explosion. When the smoke cleared, he was supposedly standing in the middle, emitting some strange orange aura. Before he fell unconscious, if only briefly. The detective explained, as Xles chimed in. From everything I gathered from the other eyewitnesses and street cameras, this is another nasty case of an uncontrolled quirk manifesting. And the child being ill-prepared to control the quirk when it did manifest. I narrow my eyes, just a little bit, now twitching my thumbs in front my stomach as we continued to watch him from outside the hospital room. I've heard of situations where a quirk manifesting in someone can sometimes cause them to hurt themselves or others. But I've only heard of one that could cause such destruction on such a high scale, but only once or twice. He must feel terrible guilt for what happened. He's no doubt blamed himself for it. Xles added, sounding off in pity for the child. We all fall into silence for a brief while. What else was there for us to say? Nothing. After what felt like hours, the detective finally broke silence, speaking in a voice of utter displeasure in what it was he had to do next. He's got no living grandparents, or aunt and uncles, or blood-related relatives. So, I'd better get started. I'll have to talk to the local foster homes about gathering the necessary paperwork to enlist him into foster care. And I'll still have to stop by the station to grab other forms for his fostering. I look out towards him, curious about the fact, turning to Xles, asking him as the detective began down the halls. Extra paperwork? I thought it was just one packet they had to fill out. Without looking to me, he spoke, closing his eyes. Since Kaido's quirk caused death and large-scale damage during his manifestation stage, and we still don't know his quirk and what all it entails, he'll have to go into foster care with extra paperwork. Since he has an unstable quirk, he'll have to come with a paper trail and clear label of his unstable quirk and inadequate training to control such quirks, so that anyone who does try to adopt him is fully up to speed and aware of the potential dangers of doing so. I turn towards him now, speaking in an obvious sense of worry for the little guy. Hold on. Won't that be counterproductive? It'll make people far less willing to choose him if they were looking to adopt. In doing that, won't it? He turned, walking the same direction, speaking a shameful tone to what was going on around us. Unfortunately, that's the point. His quirk caused 2 people to lose their lives abruptly. It's likely, without proper training, it will happen again. I narrow my eyes in a more shameful manner, slowly dragging my eyes away from them, in through the glass onto Kaido. A doctor had now entered the room, and began treating Kaido, along with beginning what he and his nurse needed to do, to begin studying and diagnosing what kind of quirk it was exactly that Kaido had. Maybe it was out of a sense of pity, or guilt. I turn and walk after Xles and the detective, speaking out loud as I do. All I know is, I wasn't going to stand by and let the system take its course. I'm a cog, living inside the system. I know how corrupt it is. This society. I won't let it chew someone else up and spit them out, like it's done to so many others, like it has me. Detective, can you come back for a moment? Before you leave? End of chapter 1.